The Chicago Cubs are at the winter meetings in Nashville, Tennessee. Mick Gillispie is live at the Gaylord Opry Center. I'm Chad Anderson here in Nashville as well. We've got coverage for the Cubs all week long. What's the first domino to fall? Where is Shohei Ohtani going to land? Where are the Cubs going to fill in the gaps? We've got all that and a lot more this entire week on the Chicago Cubs baseball channel. Here we go. It's winter meetings week. It's the best week of the offseason. I'm Chad Anderson. This is Mick Gillispie live from the Gaylord Opry Convention Center in Nashville on the east side of downtown Nashville. Mick, let's get right to it. What's it like, man? What's the vibe? What's the atmosphere? What's the feeling? Everybody seems to be waiting on the first domino. What's it like over there, man?
Yeah, good to see you, Chad. It is always fun to get back together with all of these people that you run into in the game. And that's kind of been the theme so far is, you catch up with a lot of people. But as far as baseball goes in the Cubs, everyone's waiting on Shohei Ohtani to sign. It's affecting the market in so many different ways. Where are players going to end up? And we're getting reports that Shohei Ohtani met with the Dodgers, met with Toronto. I don't know if he met with the Cubs or not, something we're still trying to find out. But we're starting to see that maybe in the next week or less, Ohtani's going to make a decision. And that is going to open up the trade market, the free agent market. There's players that you wouldn't even think of that I've been told are not getting offers until these teams, including the Cubs, the Giants, the Toronto Blue Jays, which I'm being told is a realistic possibility. And the whole time I'm like, there's just no way. But apparently there is a way. Like, Toronto is a serious contender for Ohtani. Everyone, though, seems to think it's going to be the Dodgers. And, of course, the Angels are still in there as well. There's been mixed reports on can the Cubs, will they go out and sign him? And if they don't sign him, would they sign Yamamoto? But these are really high-end players. So it starts with Ohtani. Once Ohtani decides, then all of a sudden everything else is going to open up. It's been so quiet so far because every team is waiting on Ohtani, it seems like.
And that's really interesting because, like you mentioned, there are massive names out there still. Massive names. You mentioned Yamamoto. There's also Cody Bellinger. There's the Juan Soto trade. It's being reported recently, as just a couple of hours ago, that it seems like the Cubs' optimism in being one of the places that Ohtani lands has kind of waned. It's cooled off. They're not as optimistic as they were before. Are you hearing the same thing with the Cubs?
That's the vibe here. But that doesn't mean that the Cubs aren't in it. It just means that, you're talking about some serious competition right now for Shohei Ohtani. And, the Dodgers are ready to throw all in. We heard the Cubs were. And then all of a sudden, now the Giants are a possibility. They're willing to do it. And Toronto. So that's the feeling. But what's crazy is that how it's affecting everything else. Because, you may be a free agent third baseman, for example, that is waiting on a guy that's going to make $4 or $5 million, for instance. And I have someone in mind here. But you're still waiting on this guy to sign for $500 to $600 million.
Do you think a deal for Ohtani this week at the winter meetings, no matter who it is imminent?
I don't think so, but it could happen. The fact that reports are coming out that he's meeting with teams tells me a couple things. First off, he's wanted to keep this process very quiet. And so some reports are starting to trickle out. Yeah, I met with Dave Roberts, met with the Dodgers, met with Toronto. I've heard that he was in Chicago, but I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't had that verified. So you're talking about a process that's really starting to kind of move on. And the fact that it's holding everything else up, you would hope that maybe something would happen. But I would say within the next week, he's either going to decide or we're going to know where he's going to go.
Mick Gillispie's over at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel, east side of downtown Nashville, about 10 or 15 minutes away from the downtown area. I'm Chad Anderson. We're both in Nashville. We're both going to have winter meetings coverage for you all week long on the Chicago Cubs YouTube baseball channel, so stick with us. Let's pivot for a second, Mick, and talk about other things that have surfaced with the Cubs. What's the latest with the Tyler Glasnow?
Well, I mean, that's the deal that we talked about earlier on a video, that the Cubs could be interested in Glasnow. Hearing concerns here from other teams that are considering Glasnow, and I'm sure it would apply to the Cubs as well, is the durability issue. The fact that, he's 20-some starts, 120 innings, and he's dealt with injuries. But everybody likes the strikeouts, that the electric stuff that he has. Obviously the analytics people like it because of his ability to spin the ball and all of that stuff, plus the velocity. But it's the durability part of it. And also, what are you willing to give up for a one-year rental? One of the other teams in the mix is the Cincinnati Reds. They have some farm hands that they could possibly give out. But what are you really willing to give up? Because not only are you giving up a prospect, you're also picking up $25 million for this guy. So you're taking that contract away from Tampa Bay that has no other choice but to get rid of him. So it really depends on what they're willing to give up for this guy and, in the market itself. But I think that the durability issue, and a lot of people on the message boards have kind of stated the same thing. And it feels like the pitchers that are available for trade would include him, Bieber of Cleveland, same durability thing. I think that's one of the biggest issues that you have with any pitcher is, how many innings are they going to give you? And so I'm definitely curious to see, but I think that once Ohtani goes, I feel like, or if the Cubs really are out of the Ohtani sweepstakes, I would not be surprised if they don't attack a trade like this and start to try to bolster that starting pitching.
Recent reports, I mean, we're talking in just the last, what time is it? I mean, in the last hour, we're not even an hour old on some of these. The Cubs and Rhys Hoskins have discussed a 1-year and multi-year deals. Do you know anything about that yet?
Well, I mean, it would make sense for the Cubs. You're talking about a first baseman right now. I don't think anyone is really comfortable handing the job over to Matt Mervis, right? So if you don't bring Cody Bellinger back and you put Pete Crow Armstrong in center field, which is kind of the sentiment of a lot of people, maybe he's not ready yet, but he's close. Eventually he's going to have that job. You got Mike Tauchman that can play center field and help you bridge the gap. Well, you don't have that option at first base.
Right.
So Rhys Hoskins would have the familiarity with John Maley, who was hitting coach with him out in Philadelphia. Plus the fact that the Cubs love to work those 1-year deals where like the team friendly type contract. Hey, we'll give you a little bit more cash, but we're not stuck long term. Yep. That's what they did with Cody Bellinger. Hoskins, you got issues with his fielding. He's been over the years kind of one of the worst fielding first basemen, but he can hit. And you know what? I could definitely see that happening, and that might be maybe the first move that the Cubs make.
Anything else to tell us before we hop off of here that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I mean, just that it's crazy. It really is crazy how the market right now is being affected by Shohei Ohtani. I mean, man. I mean, like talking to people from all these other teams, and they're like, yeah, they're in on this guy or they're in on that guy. And there's some frustration right now with everyone waiting and looking at Ohtani. But look, he's the Japanese Babe Ruth. I mean, he's definitely the most coveted free agent out here. So it makes a lot of sense. But it's been super quiet. And if something breaks, obviously we'll be here to jump on to tell you about it. But I think that's the big news of today is that everyone's kind of looking at Ohtani and going, hey, man, what are you doing?
Would you say, final question, would you say that even though nothing has really happened yet at winter meetings between yesterday and today, other than maybe some small minor type deals or trades, would you say that this winter meetings has like a lot of anticipation or anxiety or activity compared to years past, or is it kind of mellow with everybody only watching Ohtani and then nothing else will happen?
It feels like being on the coast with a hurricane out in out in the Atlantic or in the Gulf.
Yeah,
It's out there and it's coming. You just
yeah,
don't know when. And you know how they always do the spaghetti graphs, and you don't know like where the thing's going to end up. It feels like that right now. We got like all these spaghetti graphs. It could end up in San Francisco, could be on two different spots in LA, could be with the Cubs, could be in Toronto. The other one would be, are the Yankees going to make a deal to try to get Juan Soto? And what
yeah.
would Juan Soto be valued at? And they're saying that Juan Soto could be a guy who demands $500 million, right?
Right.
So that's a one-year trade. I don't expect that to be a trade, a trade and sign. But we're hearing that the Yankees are interested in him. There's been some questions about Cody Bellinger. The analytics crowd doesn't like the hard hit rate on, which is crazy to me, but it's a real deal. Where's he going to end up? What kind of money is he going to get? What's the years on that? And it feels like right now that they're asking for a lot, and we'll see if that kind of starts to shrink. But we're still waiting on Ohtani to even know what happens in the Bellinger market. So it just feels like there's a lot that's about to happen. And until teams either get out of the Ohtani sweepstakes, pull themselves out, or are told that they're out of it, or Ohtani announces where he's going, I don't see a whole lot happening. But then when that happens, just wait for a whirlwind of activity.
Well, that's what'll be so interesting is Ohtani and how he actually sets and establishes the market and the price points for all these other players, because Ohtani is completely in a market and a tier of his own entirely. So that'll be really interesting. Mick, I do have one piece of advice for you while you're over there at Gaylord.
Yeah.
And that is, make sure you behave yourself, because the guy over your shoulder there is going to be watching. If you look on the wall right behind you.
Yeah. Santa Claus.
He's going to be keeping an eye on
keeping
you
an eye on me.
over there at Gaylord. All right.
Oh, I've seen him. He's they say that Santa Claus always sees. He's everywhere in here. I mean, every corner there's a Santa Claus watching very intently.
I think I've seen one of those Christmas trees in Christmas Vacation at the Griswolds before. They look ginormous. So
there's a squirrel in it. Just don't get too close.
That's awesome. All right, that's Mick Gillispie. He's over at the Gaylord Convention Center for the baseball winter meetings. I'm Chad Anderson. This channel always brought to you by our friends at the Tennessee Smokies, who won their first league title in 45 years. Check out their team store. A lot of awesome gear in there. Great options for the holidays. Make sure you check them out. Mick and I will be back and with you today, probably some more, and all week long.